Hello YouTube, back with another video about Stefan Molyneux. He is he made a video recently that I found on Bitchute about edge case Lords of Doom, which is, well, since I was recently a member of Free Domain and was kicked off because I was quickly labeled as an enemy of the people on Free Domain because I was claiming that it might be a cultish behavior that they were having. And I feel that a couple of videos here recently touches on a few issues that I was discussing with that same guy, Stefan Molyneux, on that board, and I want to sort of comment on it. And this is the first video in that potentially series of a couple of videos. So let me see if I can, hang on. I'll have to start it.
Everybody's Stefan Molyneux. So, in nature, there are these predators. And what they do is...
Oh, so we have to start with, there are these people out there. And I'm going to tell you how you see them. Because I am, the leader of a cult of a huge following of attack dogs and flying monkeys. Now I have to prepare them so they know what to attack. And I'm not going to tell you sort of how it relates to philosophy directly, but I'm going to give you some hints on what they're going to say. And then you just need to attack them because they're here to fiddle with your mind and, tell you that everything is subjective and whatever. We all need communism to whatever. Now, I say at once, I am not political. I am not a communist. I am nothing in political sense at all. I don't like isms in general. I like philosophy. All right.
They inject you with a kind of paralytic venom so that you can't move in some sort of nightmare dreamscape, and then they feast on your innards and you can't get away. And there are other kinds of scavengers called jackals, so I call these people eccles. This is edge case lords, eccles. Now, what eccles do is they come up with some edge case, which then is designed to invalidate the entire philosophy that you are proposing. And it's sort of like, there's some colors halfway between blue and gray, and it's kind of tough. And you ask a bunch of people, like that blue dress thing that was going on the internet some time ago. You ask some people, and some of them will say it's more gray, and some of them will say it's more blue. And therefore they say, aha, there's no such thing as color.
No, that might not be what they're saying. Well, I don't know what the people you're talking to is saying. But another case might be that if you're proposing that color is objective, that's bullshit. Color is subjective any way you want to turn it around, because color has to be experienced by the human mind. You might want to check up on something called the hard problem of consciousness, which you are probably not aware of, or if you are aware of it, it's kind of bullshit, your philosophy, because you never talk about it, right? So qualia, as they are often called in philosophical academic terms, it's not that I'm sucking up to academics, not at all, but it's just to, so everybody knows what we're talking about. An experience is purely subjective. No matter what the experience is purely subjective. You can sort of agree with other people on becoming an objective agreement. If you agree that that's blue and I'll say, yes, that's blue, then you have an objective agreement in a fashion that suits both of you. But you're not going to tell me that color is objective, because man is a measure of all things, as Protagoras said, as Socrates pointed out in Plato's dialogue. So man has to measure things. When people say, I think it's a little on the gray side, another person says, I think it's a little on the blue side, they're actually both right in their own subjective way. What you want to come and say is, well, I'll go to say I have a measuring instrument that says this is 917.9958 nanometers, and that's what the color is, right? No, you have to respect subjective judgment because that's all we have, right? Now, those who want to say, okay, there's a little thing over there that doesn't match the rest of it, therefore I'm completely discarding everything. That's kind of bullshit, right? Not necessarily, because if everything has to be straight line, right? Straight, then if there's a little dent somewhere, well, it doesn't work. You know, if there's a little dent on the glass of the Hubble telescope, well, they're going up there and removing that dent, or, you know, changing the whole mirror in the thing, right? Some things has to be very accurate. Other things can be more like, you know, fluffy, right?
Because there's gray, there's no such thing as black and white. Now, of course, we only know that there is a gray because there is a black and white, and it's an admixture of the two. So these edge case laws will show up everywhere you try and establish some rule. So, you know, in a free society, just as we have now, there has to be some distinction between a child and an adult. And I don't know if you had the...
Why does there have to be that? Why? There has to be? Who says that? Are you the master of the universe coming down to earth telling people there must be a distinction between man and child, right? Or grown up or child, right? Who the hell do you think you are? Mr. Chatty Forehead? You're not some sort of authority on when a person is grown up and when it's not, right? Nobody is. It's a subjective judgment, right?
This sort of thought and feeling when you were a kid, I know I did, where it's like, oh, so if I want to vote, I have to be 18 to be considered an adult. If I want to drive, I have to be 16. If I want to drink, I have to be 19. But when it comes to paying an adult price on a roller coaster, I only have to be 13. Anyway, I've let it go. But, you know, it took many years of therapy and a fair amount of medication, and I believe some moderate head trauma. So the edge case lords say, you say 18. Okay, an adult is 18. And what they do is they say, okay, I'm an echo.
Sorry, I need to hear that one. Head trauma?
I'm going to say, what? So what you...
what?
Did I know I did. In a free society, just as we have now, there has to be some distinction between a child and an adult. And I don't know if you had this sort of thought and feeling when you were a kid. I know I did. Where it's like, oh, so if I want to vote, I have to be 18 to be considered an adult. If I want to drive, I have to be 16. If I want to drink, I have to be 19. But when it comes to paying an adult price on a roller coaster, I only have to be 13. Anyway, I've let it go. But, you know, it took many years of therapy and a fair amount of medication, and I believe some moderate head trauma. So the edge case lords say, you say 18. Okay, an adult is 18. And what they do is they say, okay, I'm an edge case lord. So what I'm going to do.
No, yes, that's what they do. Because they're not this fantastic philosophy that you are, or you know, these sort of flying monkeys you have around you on your Discord channel or whatever. They're so wise and all, but if they have another way of thinking that doesn't really match your liking, they are sort of edge case lords who are only there to destroy everything. It's not philosophy because you don't like it. So therefore they are edge case lords, right?
Is I'm going to say, so what you're saying is, and this is often, it's a species of the well, actually, people. Well, actually. So they're saying, okay, so when someone is 17 years, 364 days, 23 hours and 59 minutes, and then they get one extra minute, suddenly they go from being a child to being an adult. What's the big difference? It's like, it's a minute's difference. I get it. I get it. It's not a massive difference.
I remember you arguing in a different way in the early days, where you specifically talked about, well, people putting on some blue costume doesn't necessarily turn them into a cop, or people doing, you know, 1 minute later, they become pensionaries, and they go from paying money to people's pensions to receiving money because this arbitrary number, which is so many years, is that arbitrary number that some people have decided is when you turn over. Well, what have changed now? Who are you sucking up to in the power structure that puts forth these arbitrary numbers that people should follow and say, you have become a grown-up now, you have reached that many number of years?
But you got to draw a line somewhere, right?
Who has to draw a line somewhere? Who has to draw a line, right? Is it you? Are you going to draw a line? Who are you to tell other people when they are grown up, right? What if you're not a grown up yet? Who knows? There might be something wrong with your brain. You are only 12 years old in your brain. Are you going to say just because you have existed so and so many years that you have become a grown up? Who are you to tell anybody? And who are you to tell that anybody else should do it? What gave you that power, right?
You have to draw a line somewhere. And it's not like in the 1 minute that someone goes from being 17 to 18 that there's a...
Another thing is a line somewhere, meaning a line that everybody in the world has to obey. Why is that line? Why is it always that these kind of lines are not drawn individually, but for everyone, no matter what, right? It's freaking stupid. It's so stupid.
Massive change, but you've got to make some kind of a difference.
Why? Tell me why. Where is it? Where is that argument? You're a philosophy guy, aren't you? Tell us where it is, why it is. You have to, who has to, right?
And the same thing you could say with buying a car, right? Let's say you're buying a car for $20,000, right?
You are not comparing my children with a car, are you? Are you comparing my children with a fucking car?
And then you say, I want 1 penny off.
It's so tough. I have to, spend, 30 minutes of my day, in my busy day, standing by my door here, making a video. It's so tough that people don't understand this, that there are some people telling us when we are grown-ups, we must respect that. It's so annoying. I have to do this.
Well, what's the car dealership going to? They're going to say, great, yeah, we'll give you a penny off. Okay, sure, here you go, right? And you say, oh, well, I want another penny off, and I want another. And then at some point you say, I don't know, I want 50,000 pennies off or 500,000 pennies off or something. And at some point they're going to say, no, that's too much. And then you can go back and you can say, okay, so if it's 1 penny more, you'll take it. But this 1 penny, this is what eccles do all the time. They come up with some edge case, and then they assume that that invalidates the entire perspective. Now, this, of course, is not what people do in the real world. In the real world, we kind of recognize these exceptions, which is why people don't haggle over cars in 1 penny increments. They tend to do it in $100, $500, whatever it's going to be. And if some judge in a free society, someone comes up and says, I was a child, Your Honor, when I did this. And they say, well, how old were you? And they say, well, basically, I was 1 minute shy of my 18th birthday. What is the judge going to do? The judge is going to say, okay, we're going to try you as an adult because it's as near as damn it, right? And there's certain kinds of people, I'm not sure, maybe it's some obsessive compulsive thing. And what they do is they say, wherever there is a gray area, therein resideth my Billie Eilish video anxiety, right? I mean, wherever there's something that is not crystal clear, black and white, able to be drawn with perfect engineering, mathematical precision, therein is an anxiety I simply cannot abide. And they use, like, those are the edge cases that they use to widen the cracks and disassemble the entire edifice of any rational belief system. And it's like saying, well, there's no such thing, you see, as biological classifications, because platypus, man. Okay, so the platypus is, what is it? It's a mammal because...
When you say is, we have to deconstruct this. There is no such thing. What do you mean is? Do you mean somebody has written somewhere and categorized animals from certain characteristics and then written somewhere that this is this kind of animal and this is this kind of animal? When you say is it that kind of, manuscript, book, whatever you're referring to, or is it the actual animal you are referring to? Because mammal is not something that exists. That is a sort of artificial category that animals are put in by human beings thinking about animals, right? It seems to me you do not understand the difference between what exists and whatever categories human being put these sort of ideas of animals into, right? You need to understand the difference.
Because it's got hair, it's warm-blooded, and so on. But it also gives birth to eggs rather than live young, and saying, well, then there's no such thing as a difference between a reptile and a mammal, because platypus, right? And so these are the exceptions that prove the rule, right? So the vast majority of mammals give birth to live young. The platypus is a mammal that is an exception that proves the rule. That's how we know that mammal means live young as a whole, because, right? So there.
Well, it is a weakness in the category. If they are saying that this is a category where animals does this, and there are some animals that does something from both categories, well, then they should make a third category. I mean, basically, I don't give a shit about animal categories, right? It doesn't change how my cat is, whether or not you call it a platypus, or you call it a cat, or you call it a Ford T. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change things, whatever you call them. The world is what it is, no matter what sound you make with your throat, right? Doesn't change anything.
All these edge cases. And whenever you propose a standard, a rule, then what's going to happen is...
Hang on. You can't propose a rule. A proposition is an attempt at establishing a fact, an objective fact, or at first a subjective fact, in the sense, when you propose something, you're saying that's an elephant, right? A rule is not an object. That's a mental construct. So you are equivocating, or you are misusing the terms. You're talking about knowledge. A rule is not knowledge. That's an artificial construct used to make things sort of easier for human beings to categorize stuff. But that doesn't mean those categories, they exist, or those rules that are constructed to handle these categories or whatever it is exist. They don't. Only the things that are referred to in the real world exist, and they can be proposed.
The eccles are going to stop. They sniff. Oh, what's that I smell?
Oh, those bastards are creeping in on the Discord server. They try to get in and, change the mind of my flying monkeys. So my weird business model might be in jeopardy. So I have to make sure that they get my sort of, Discord Gestapo gets even more sort of hardcore and attack people. So I'm protected. So my money, I'm counting all my cryptos here. I'm trying to defend my money, right? And I have to make sure that they defend me against these people who can actually think, or even, God forbid, do real philosophy.
No. What it is, what I smell, is certainty. And I must use my echo wizardry to...
I would love a definition of certainty. I would love a definition of certainty. Please, give me a definition of certainty. Give it to me, baby. Give it, Mr. H-Case Lords of Doom Destroyer.
Water my sliminess in between the cracks of the edge cases, widen it out, and disassemble the entire edifice of certainty. Certainty is a predator to these people, which is why they tend to go after my theory of ethics, or I think a rational theory of ethics.
Oh, so your ethics is based on certainty. Okay, to my listeners, you might want to go and check out my deconstruction of UPB, which is this guy's ethics. And I give you a hint. There might be a few little troubles with his work. So please go and check it out. It's called Deconstructing UPB. UPB, Universally Preferable Behavior.
Ethics called universally preferable behavior. They'll try and find some sort of edge case, and then they will use that to attempt to bring down the entire system because...
Okay, so now any critique, you will label that as an edge case. And that means everybody who attacks you, have critical thinking or can do some philosophy, they will be labeled as edge case laws. And you can get rid of them. All your little monkeys can attack them. We want to get rid of these who can think critically and attack your piece of junk ethics, right? Because it needs to be there, so you have a reason to exist and get all this money you want to get your hands on, right? Doesn't matter if your ethics is right or anything. No, it doesn't matter. You haven't changed the word since 2007. The latest version is still version 1 from 2007. That's 14 years of no change. You must be absolutely freaking certain that you have done the right thing with this ethics. Not a single comma has been changed, right?
They're eccles. It's kind of their compulsion. They hate certainty. It's a predator of some kind. And I like certainty.
But give me the freaking definition, please. Give it to me, baby. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. You're a philosopher. Come on.
I think certainty is a very good thing. I'm quite certain that I'm recording audio and video here. Otherwise, I'd just be a crazy.
Okay, you are quite certain. So what's the difference between certain and quite certain, right? You will have to check afterwards. Is that it? So you're quite certain. Okay, now you are sort of falling apart, aren't you?
Crazy person talking to myself in a room corner. So I like certainty. I think it's a good thing. But the eccles,
Is certainty a thing? Can you point to certainty and say, that's a certainty? What color does it have? What shape does it have? What taste does it have? What sound does it have? What feel does it have? What odor does it have? Check your armpits. Maybe you can smell certainty there. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing, right?
Hate certainty, and they must bring it down as a predator that...
If I don't know what it is, I can't bring it down, right? So if you please, Mr. Molyneux, Mr. Lords of Doom Destroyer, would you please tell me what it is?
Somehow undoes their very being. I think it's because they've done wrong in their life, just my personal feeling. I think they've done some really bad things in their life. And when a clear system of ethics comes along, it makes them feel very bad.
Yeah, well, bad things. They've done bad things. Of course they have. You, your friend, these ed case law, they're crawling around and trying to get into free domain and change people's minds. They want to fiddle with it. They're probably nihilists and communists, and they want to get you. They want to destroy your business plan. God damn them.
And because UPB, universally preferable behavior, is simply the conscience, our conscience crystallized and abstracted in philosophical form. And so everybody who's done wrong has a conscience that lies deep within their body. And UPB...
I need to hear that again, sorry.
They'll try and find some sort of edge case, and then they will use that to attempt to bring down the entire system because they're eccles. It's kind of their compulsion. They hate certainty. It's a predator of some kind. And I like certainty. I think certainty is a very good thing. I'm quite certain that I'm recording audio and video here. Otherwise, I'd just be a crazy person talking to myself in a room corner. So I like...
Well, I wouldn't rule that out. I wouldn't rule that out. You're a crazy person talking in a corner. It's certainly possible. It's not certain, but it's possible.
Certainty, I think it's a good thing. But the eccles, they hate certainty, and they must bring it down as a predator that somehow undoes their very being. I think it's because they've done wrong in their life, just my personal feeling. I think they've done some really bad things in their life, and when
So somebody writing to you about some sort of edge case in your ethics, if there's an edge case in your ethics, they say, well, I think there might be a problem over here. Can you enlighten me about your ethics? they're calling you from, Johannesburg or something, then you have a feeling that there's something wrong with their life. They have done something wrong. Is that what you're saying? Or you're just trying to, label people who criticize anything, just any critical thought about your fantastic UPB as being bad people, and there's something wrong with them or something? Not everybody had a childhood where they were beaten every other day by their stupid single mom, right? Is that kind of thing you're talking about, or what?
Clear system of ethics comes along, it makes them feel very bad, because UPB, universally preferable behavior, is simply the conscience, our conscience crystallized and abstracted in philosophical form. And so everybody who's done...
Our consciousness crystallized into an abstract form? What the hell is that? Our consciousness crystallized into a... What was it? Damn.
Wrong has a conscience that lies deep within their body, and UPB is a big sonar wake-up call to that slumbering conscience, and I think that they then attack it because they're actually trying to attack their own conscience to try and not end up in a situation where they have to make a...
Wow, Mr. Psychology guy, I'm impressed. Of course they are. And remember to put this up on the Discord board so everybody can see what you're saying. You need to stop, the fire. I might have created a few sparks of light in your weird little collective there, and people starting to ask questions. Maybe you had a few things going from that, Mandibil guy there, right? So now you're trying to put out the fire and putting people in place and say, he was an edge case lord. He was there to attack you and, destroy certainty and, oh.
By the way, if you've done wrong to people, do us all a solid, do humanity a solid, call them out, better yet, go over, apologize, make amends, you'll feel better, they'll feel better, the world will get better, and you won't have to be an echo anymore that has to attach itself like a vampire on a baby.
Oh man, you're so virtuous. Oh man, virtue signaling. It's so much virtue signaling, right? When I came on board on your Discord channel, the first thing you did was, when I gave you a suggestion for a topic for the next some video in the future, was to talk past me as if I didn't exist, and then say there was some little bit that was straw man argument, and then you rejected the whole 45-minute video on that ground. Okay, yes. When you get mad at people, your behavior is of course very fine. Of course it is, because you're Mr. Edge Case Lord of Doom Destroyer, right? But you can tell people how to behave. You're above that. You can behave whatever the way you like, because you're Mr. Master of free domain Discord, right?
One such example is hunger. Hey, look, we went from vampires to hunger. See, and sometimes it...
Thank you for taking that up, right? You didn't want to talk about it with me on your board. You just left because you thought that I was changing the topic, and then you just left. Why? So, but you can talk about it now, because now you can talk to the whole community and everybody in the world, and edge case lords of doom are coming, right? So now let's hear what you have to say.
Work that out. Wait, nicely. So hunger. So people will say, is hunger a true phenomenon? Right. So,
is hunger a true phenomenon? But why do you call it a phenomenon? Why do you need to put a label on it? Is the word hunger not enough? It's an experience, right? It's some kind of experience in your body. Phenomenon?
What is truth? Well, truth are ideas in the mind that conform to reason and evidence, right? And reason first.
No. Truth is not something that conform. Truth is not something that conform. Reason and evidence is not about truth. Reason is, if you take an example with an elephant, you want to go and see an elephant. Okay, then you start reasoning about, how can I get to see an elephant? I could take the plane, go to Africa, and try to find an elephant. Okay. When you get to Africa, there might be some evidence somewhere. You are in the plains, or what is called savannah, and you see, oh, there's an ivory. What's it called? Ivory. Is it called ivory, right? The tusk, or elephant tracks, and you say, there's an evidence of an elephant. I'm going to follow those evidence to get to the elephant. And when you get to the elephant, it's no longer reasoning, it's no longer evidence, it is freaking knowledge based on your experience. And then you can say, that is an elephant, and that proposition can be true or false, and only you can judge whether or not that proposition is true or false, right? So knowledge is subjective.
And then evidence if it passes the test of rationality, because the universe is rational.
The universe is rational. What is rationality compared to reason? Well, I would say that rationality is valuable reasoning, or reasoning about valuable actions, let's say, right? If you reason, you can reason how to make a panda blue, right? But that might not be valuable to you, so you don't reason about that. But you might want to reason about how to pay your next rent on your house, right? So, because that's a valuable kind of reasoning, so that's rational to reason about that. But the universe is rational, so you think that there's mind everywhere that is rationalizing about how it's paying its rent or something like that? What kind of BS is that?
Or, to put it another way, the universe is objective and consistent, and reason is...
No, objectivity is not something things are. Objectivity is an agreement between two or more persons about a proposition. If me and my friend is on that savannah looking at an elephant, and I say that's an elephant, and let's say I experience elephant, then I can say that's true for me. But that my friend could say it's not true for me, it's false for me. I can't know if he's correct because I don't have his experience, and he can't say the same thing on me because he doesn't have my experience. But each of our experience is necessary to establish whether or not, or establish the affirmation of that proposition, right? So objectivity is not out there. That's a subjective experience. At best, at most, I would say, right? The objectivity is that we agree upon that subjective experience.
Is the methodology that accurately describes the behavior of reality. So then people say, is hunger, if I say I'm hungry, is that a true statement? Can you evaluate the truth statement called I am hungry? Well,
I would say that you could say that it's true if you make a proposition, am I hungry? Well, it stands or falls upon a definition of what can be true or false. If you are willing to add, the feeling of hunger to aspects that can be true or false, then it's true or false for you, right? You're the only one who are feeling your hunger. You are the only one feeling your hunger if you're hungry, right? But I can't go around telling you whether or not you're hungry or not, right? That's a feeling that is particular to you because of the hard problem of consciousness, right? You might want to look that up.
So there are some truth statements that can't be validated. Like if I tell you,
you can validate it yourself. You can validate your own hunger. You probably do it all day or several times a day. When you say, I think I'm hungry. I think I'm asking my wife to make some food for me because I can't cook myself. So I have to tell her to make me some food so I can get something to eat. You are probably validating that emotion or that feeling or whatever label you want to put on it, right? Do you have to convince your wife that you are hungry? Otherwise, she won't make food for you. You say, no, I'm not giving you food until you can prove that you're hungry. What kind of bullshit is that?
I had a dream about a clown last night. Sorry, I thought I saw a clown. If I say I had a dream about a clown last night, can you verify that in any way whatsoever?
No, I can't. Neither can you, because if you are not dreaming the thing you're dreaming about, right? It can at most be a memory of that dream. So if you have a memory of the dream, you can't validate the dream. You can only validate that you have a memory of the dream, right? Because you're not in the dream anymore. But you're still the only one having that memory or had that dream. So it's only you who can talk about it. And basically, who gives a flying F about your clown dreams?
Well, no, of course you can't. There's no way you can go back Inception style into my brain and figure out if I actually saw a clown in my dreams or anything. You can't check that. You can't verify it. And I don't know why.
Okay, but I remember listening to some way back in the day, in your earlier days, you were spending a lot of time analyzing callers' dreams. Did you ask whether or not, did you ask for some kind of verification that what they dreamt was what they dreamt? Right? That didn't matter back then. Apparently, it was very important for you to, be able to talk about their dreams, even if you couldn't validate it. So apparently, it's worth spending philosophy on, supposing that what you did was philosophy, since you call yourself a philosopher and call your show a philosophy show. But you weren't able to verify what they were telling you. So they could be telling you weird stuff they made up in the kitchen, made up in their edge case Lord of Doom brain, right?
Oh, maybe it's just they're surrounded by maybe the Eccles, right? The edge case lords. The Eccles are surrounded by such terrible people, or maybe they themselves are such terrible people that they just can't trust anyone about anything at any time under any circumstances. I'm going to need proof. Hey, honey, I think I'm lost. Oh yeah, I'm going to need proof. It's like, look, if you're just in general, if you're in a situation in life where somebody says, I had a dream about a clown last night, and you say, I'm sorry, I don't have any proof of that. You're probably surrounded by the wrong people, because that's a matter of personal trust, isn't it? If I say I had a dream of...
Well, why would I want to trust your dreams? I'm not going to trust, right? Don't tell me I have to trust whatever bullshit you claim to. And it's fine if you dream of a clown, so be it. I can never check it. So if I want to reject your dream as I don't care, well, I don't care. But if I'm a sort of a dream analyzer and you come to me and pay me some money, well, I will probably gladly tell you some story about how you were beaten in your childhood or something like that, right?
About a clown, and you're like, I can't believe you because I don't have any objective proof. It's like, we don't really have a very good relationship. You don't trust anyone, or I'm not trustworthy, or something like that, right? So in the realm of personal trust, these things kind of happen.
Oh, so now he wants to manipulate you into thinking you're a bad person if you don't trust what I say. He's a master manipulator, right? Just be wary of how this man he works. He's manipulating like you won't believe it, right? He wants you to think, oh, yes, I'm bad, but don't trust Mr. Steph. I should trust what he says. And that's exactly what he wants. Then he can pull any garbage. And I'm feeling this guy from Johannesburg who called me on the internet. He's probably had a weird childhood because he's an edgelord and because he has critical thinking. I don't like it. Attack him.
With regards to hunger, is it an objective state? It's hard to say. Because it's like that old...
Well, it's not an object, is it? Your hunger is not an object. It's at most a feeling, a sensation of some kind. But I don't know what exactly label to put on it, but it's an emotion or a sensation, right? It's not an object. So it can't be objective, right? It can't be an objective. You can't use your senses to observe your hunger, right? It's from the inside of your body. Your senses are placed on the periphery of your body. They are used to create some sort of idea of what is going on outside your mind. So, but your body is more in the control of the whole brain system And most of these functions are sort of, automatic. Your heart is beating automatically. You can't think to stop your heart, for instance, or something like that. So much of it is running, on autopilot. But things where you need to be taking action, like hunger, it's there for you to take action. It's not for somebody else to figure out whether or not it's true. Fuck them, right?
Chestnut, like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound?
How did you know there was a tree in the forest? How did you know there was a tree in the forest? If a tree falls in the forest, but you don't know, you're just guessing. I'm not going, to philosophize about your imagination, right? That's particularly subjective to you.
And it depends how you define sound. If sound is something that people hear, then no, it doesn't make a sound. If sound is vibrations in the air, then yes, it does make a sound, right? It just depends on the definition. It's not a particularly complicated one. And the fact that it's still around is kind of the result of philosophers doing a circle jerk of useless abstractions rather than actually helping society in the real world, wherein you get a lot of blowback, as I know. So hunger, okay, so there are certain hormones, I think, that are released in the body when you get hungry.
Hormones are not hunger. The feeling of hunger is not your fucking hormones, right? Now you are stepping across the boundary of the hard problem of consciousness. You might want to look into this before you tell everybody about how wise you are about these things. Hormones are not hunger. No matter what kind of chemistry, what kind of natural laws or nuclear what's it called quantum mechanics or atoms and molecules and whatever. It doesn't matter how much of that you bring forth. You can do that from now to the end of time. It doesn't give you the sensation of being hungry. Okay, that is particularly subjective.
And so we can measure whether you have those hormones in your system, right? And we also know human beings.
We can measure. Who can measure? Can you measure that? So you're going to your wife and say, "Well, you please measure if I'm hungry." Right? Yes, she trusts when you say that you're hungry, that that you are hungry. She trusts that. Well, yeah, sure. But that doesn't mean that she knows that you're hungry, right? So you have to make some sort of instrument.
Beings need 1,500 to 2,500 calories, or for me, 4,000 if you're writing a book. You need a certain amount of calories to get through the day and maintain weight and all of that. Depends if you exercise or whatever it is, right? So we know that if somebody hasn't eaten for 24 hours, their body needs food. Now, is hunger defined as your body needing food? Well, yeah, if you haven't eaten in 24 hours, your body needs food, and therefore you're hungry. Now, that's the objective thing. You could also say, if somebody's hungry, like let's say they just overeat like crazy, they've stretched out their stomach, and then every hour they don't get 1,000 calories, they feel hungry. Now, their body doesn't need food, but they feel hungry because they've developed bad eating habits. Have you ever had that thing where it's the old chestnut about Chinese food, you're hungry a couple of hours later. Are you objectively hungry? No, you've had enough calories, but you're experiencing the subjective experience of hunger, right? Now, maybe we can...
You're not objectively hungry, but you're subjectively hungry. But hunger is not an object, right? It's not an object. So in that sense, it can't be objective because it's not an object. It's a sensation. You can say, I feel hungry, but nobody can. You can't reach some sort of objectivity around it because you're the only one having that sensation. So that why are you fly-fucking this like it's the most important question in the world? The original question was, is it true that you're hungry, right? Why are you not staying within that confines? It's very easy. Either you can define sensations like hunger or any other like internal body sensations as something that you can have or not have, right? I would prefer they were not something that could be called true or false because they're sort of a matter of degree. You can be extremely hungry and then very slightly hungry, right? I like my truth and false to be binary, that either I am experiencing an elephant or I am not experiencing an elephant. I like truth and falsehood and proposition to be about that external world. But the internal world, you can say, okay, I feel hunger. Why do you need to establish it as true? But you could do that if you say, well, hunger is you either feel hunger or you don't, you feel some degree of hunger or you don't feel hungry. Okay, if you don't feel hungry, it's false. If you do feel some kind of hunger, it's true. That's it. That's all. It's true to you. But you have the feeling or the sensation. So you don't need to say, oh, it's true that I'm hungry, because you have the feeling already. You don't need to label it true for it to be there. It was there already. And since it's subjective, there's no need to call it true, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not important. That things that has to be labeled objective to be important is ridiculous. And saying that subjective things are not really that philosophical is even more ridiculous. I would say those are some of the most important things you can possibly deal with, because that's your life. That's what you experience. You don't have anything but your experience, right? Man is the measure of all things.
Measure, if you were doing some experiment, right? You could measure the hunger hormones in people's body, and if they were present, you'd say, okay, they're experiencing hunger most likely because of these hormones, right? But let's say they've eaten recently, they are not producing these hunger hormones, and they say, I feel hungry. Okay, well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. You know, when I was a kid, if I didn't want to go to school, I would have terrible stomach pains, you know, kind of unverifiable, and so on, right? So was it real? Nah, not really. Just, you know, every sane kid needs a break from that propaganda mill from time to time. Not that you should do it ever. It's wrong. But anyway, so if somebody says, I feel hungry, and they just ate and they have no hunger hormones, do they feel hungry? Well, maybe. Maybe they're lying. Maybe they're just saying that they're hungry so they can get more food because they're greedy. I don't know. It just depends how you define hunger. If hunger is the purely subjective experience, independent of the amount of food or the presence of the hunger hormones, well, that sounds like a really bad trilogy, doesn't it? The hunger hormones. So if hunger is a subjective experience, then it's not in the realm of philosophy. Purely subjective experiences are not in the realm of philosophy. They're
okay, don't trust this man, right? He wants to say that subjective experience is not philosophy. That's because you have a subjective experience of hunger. It's extremely important that you listen to your internal, you know, what goings on, right? He wants to sort of distrust, and he wants there to be measurement of hormones that comes down and tell people when they're hungry or not, right? This is fucking crazy. He's crazy. Well, listen to this, Mr. HK's Lords of Doom Destroyer. If I made a machine, let me put it this way. You get all the money you want and all the people in the world you need, and you make a machine that can measure to the best of what you want that is possible. A machine that can measure whether or not you are hungry. And then you will be locked in my basement. Well, not that I want to, but let's, thought experiment, right? And 4 times a day, I will use that instrument and you can get the readout. And if the readout says hungry, you will get some food from me. So agreed upon amount of food, right? And if it says you're not hungry, then you don't get food. What would you prefer? That we listen to the machine that tells you whether or not you're hungry, or your own experience of hunger? Which one do you prefer? Right? Just think about it.
We're in the realm of personal honesty, personal trust, conversation. I understand they're not in the realm of philosophy. Philosophy is that which can be objectively measured. So what's in the realm of philosophy? Well, the fact that your body needs food. That's in the realm of biology, really. But
if I say to you, I have a personal feeling that you are sort of a semi-cult leader, is that a sort of a personal trust I need to put forth? Would you accept that? Or would you say that I'm lying because I want to get to you, because I'm an edge case Lord of Doom, right? So all this sort of Christian, you must not lie, you must tell the truth, you must be honest and say what you feel. No, bullshit, right? If you don't want to tell people what you feel and whether or not you're hungry, so be it. Keep it to yourself. That's your choice, right? Don't give me all about this bullshit of trust and all that. No, nobody should tell you anything about how you should do this or do that, unless you have some sort of agreement you should adhere to. And even then I would say, well, if you don't adhere to it, well, don't, but then you will receive some sort of, consequence from that. That's it.
But it's a philosophically true statement to say your body needs food, that the experience of hunger is produced by particular hormones within the body. I don't know if they're hormones or what, I think they're hormones, right? But if we say that the presence or absence of these hormones is the definition of hunger, then again, we can measure these things. They move from the realm of subjective opinion into empirical fact. When it's empirically verifiable, when it's objectively verifiable, then it's in the realm of philosophy. If it's not objectively verifiable, then it's in the realm of personal trust.
Okay. So you are telling people that their subjective experience is not philosophy. No. All you have been talking about the last 14, 15 years have all been objective, only philosophy, right? Because you are sort of this objective person who are only thinking objective philosophy, who has come down to tell the little people that their subjective experience is not worth shit, right? Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. What you actually need is to focus very much on your subjective experience, because that's all you have. Okay? Don't trust this guy.
And relationships. Do you trust the person to tell you the truth if they say they had a dream about a clown last night? Well, that's up to you. Do they tell the truth in general? Does it make sense as a whole? Do you trust them to tell the truth as a whole? It's just personal. And personal trust is not in the realm of philosophy.
Why are you talking about it then? You're talking about it as if it was philosophy. You're philosophizing about an area that is not philosophy. So you're sort of contradicting yourself. And why everything that goes on in your mind, of which you are thinking, is some kind of philosophy, right? Don't believe this guy. I mean, it's bullshit. Whatever you want to think about in a philosophical manner is philosophy, right?
Now, I think you can say that if someone has been honest with you as a whole for 20 years, absent any brain injury or I don't know, conversion to Satanism out of nowhere, they're not going to just wake up and start pathologically lying to you, because character tends to be pretty consistent throughout life. I remember going to a high school reunion, but completely by accident. I was just down picking a friend of mine up who happened to live near the high school. There was a reunion. We just decided to drop in. And it was just amazing to be how everybody was exactly the same as they were in high school. I could see people down the hallway, and the way that they walked was exactly the same, whether they were slope-shouldered, whether they stood up straight. I mean, the athletic people were still generally athletic, and we were all a little worse for wear through time. It's a pretty brutal tire track that time leaves on your face, but they're all pretty much the same. And people were saying to me, yeah, you're pretty much the same. And, character tends to remain fairly constant. I mean, you can improve, you can change as a whole, but your character as a whole tends to remain fairly constant throughout life. So in the realm of personal trust, you can say if somebody's been lying to you, then they've earned your lack of trust. If somebody's been telling the truth to you, then they've earned your trust. But
how do you know if they've been lying? How do you know if they're lying? What does it mean to lie? Well, if I make a proposition and say that's an elephant, and the other person says that's true, but they didn't experience an elephant, then they were lying. Is the lying that you're saying something that is false is really true, or something that true is really false, or is the lying that you propose that's an elephant? But that proposition can't be judged by other people, right? So it must be you're saying something is true that is false, right? You're not saying something that is false is true. That might be the case also. May take a few brain things to get through, but it's the opposite of if true is false or false is true, right? How do you know that? You don't have access to their experience. You can't compare their experience to that thing that you are talking about in that proposition. So how do you know they're lying? How do you know they're lying, right? You have to have access to their experience, and you don't have that. That is the old problem of other minds that you might want to look up also.
But it's subjective statements are not in the realm of philosophy, and people will do this to you all the time, right? These people, these Eccles will, edge case lords, they will do this to you all the time, and they will constantly switch between a purely subjective experience and an objective measurable experience, or a purely subjective experience and an objective measurable fact. Do we need calories to survive? Yes, we do. Is there a hunger hormone? Yes, there is. If somebody subjectively says that they're hungry and they just ate and there's no hunger hormones in their system, can we objectively verify that they're hungry? No, we can't. There are some people who go on hunger strikes who report that after a day or two of not eating, they don't feel hungry anymore. Does that mean they're not hungry? Depends how you define it. If you define it as something they just feel, then they don't feel hungry.
No, but that's hunger. It's a feeling of hunger, right? That's what we're talking about. If they don't feel hungry, they are not hungry. They might need food. That's another thing. But if you're talking about now, you're trying to interpret and looking at their body and say they should feel hunger, or they're not feeling hunger, but they ought to because they are so thin and haven't eaten in 3 days or whatever. But that's not about hunger. You're starting to interpret that body and that external world and saying that's more important than your feeling of hunger. You have to look at your body and your hormones and all that bullshit. That's nothing to do with hunger.
You can say you trust them or not or whatever, right? But it's not in the realm of philosophy. If they have massive washes of hunger hormones in their system and we know they haven't eaten in a couple of days, that objectively their body needs food, and that's hunger. Hunger is your body needs food, right? Again, you can define it subjectively, you can define it objectively, and switching these definitions is a constant trick of these predators called the Eccles. And it's really, really important. You'll see this all the time. You say, so you're into truth and falsehood. Tell me this. Is love a true thing? Does love exist? Is it a fact? Well, love is a subjective experience. My definition of love, which I stand by very strongly.
Okay, so it's not philosophical. It's subjective experience. So are you telling me that some subjective experiences are philosophical and some other kinds of subjective experience are not philosophical? Why are you spending time talking about all these subjective things if they're not philosophy? Aren't you a philosophy guy, right?
Strongly is that love is our involuntary response to virtue if we are ourselves virtuous. So if you're a virtuous person, you try to do the right thing, you tell the truth, you try to act with some honor and integrity. Nobody's perfect, but you aim at it, right? So if you are a virtuous person and you come across another virtuous person, you will tend to hold that person in high regard. And it may not be all the way to love because you have friends and you may have varying degrees of virtue.
They may have the wrong sex.
Virtue, and everybody's on the journey to the good and all that. But you will have a positive response to someone who's virtuous if you yourself are virtuous. If you are immoral or evil and you come across a virtuous person, you will feel, it's a complex thing that evil people have with relationship to good people. There's envy, there's desire to achieve it, there's hatred in the belief the evil person can't achieve it. There's a predatory desire to destroy the good because it reveals the evil in the same way that the shadow is revealed by the statue in front of the sun. So it's complicated, but it's not love, right? Now, love also, there are bonding hormones that are released. It happens with mothers and child. It happens with sexual.
Again, the hard problem of consciousness, you might want to look that up.
Or romantic bonding, there's a high. And so there's a lot of things that you can measure with regards to objective. Does somebody get dopamine or serotonin release in the presence of someone? You could sort of measure a positive thing when somebody's in the presence of someone else. You can measure all of that. And there's ways to track if they've been generally virtuous and so on. So there's lots of ways that you can measure love or attachment in general. But there's also, if you just define it as
Can
pure
measure
subjective
love?
experience, then it comes down to personal trust. I mean, if somebody says, I love the band, I don't know, In Excess. Let's switch from Queen for once in my life. So somebody says, oh, I love the band In Excess, right? And then you, in the old days, you'd look at their record collection. I guess later you'd look at CD collections. Now you might look at their playlists, or I don't know what is up these days, right? But and there's not a single song or album or anything like that. Say, I love this band. It's like, but you never listen to them and you don't have any of their records. So the empirical evidence would point against it. And there's nothing ever in your play history. I don't know, whatever you could do to sort of track their musical taste, right? And, well, I love them, but I don't listen to them because I love them so much. Again, it just comes down to personal trust. You trust that person to tell the truth. Also, is there a motive for them to lie?
That's right. That's right. That's a good one. That's a good one. You make your own judgment according to, you know, what you have, whatever evidence you have. If some guy's running around and saying, I'm the biggest In Excess fan in the world, and he never, as far as you can see, never listens to In Excess, do not have any CDs, do not have any vinyl albums, do not have a playlist on, you know, whatever it's called, Spotify, or anything In Excess, it sounds weird, right? But you can't prove anything, right? You have some sort of evidence, but as I pointed out before, evidence is not knowledge, okay? Evidence is not knowledge, right? That's why there's a, you know, there's a term in the American court called beyond reasonable doubt, right? Because you can't get to knowledge. It's only evidential and, you know, conjecture or whatever you want. It points in a certain direction, but you can never get to it because it's either hidden in somebody's mind or it's in the past, right? So,
or whatever it is, right? So you got to watch out for these edge cases, right? So you ask for the definition. Somebody says, is this valid? Is this true?
Now I want to understand, why is the feeling of hunger, why does that have anything to do with edge cases? As I understand you sort of framing of people's way of thinking or mode of thinking or arguing, labeling that edge case lords of doom to sort of, you know, attack people or get your minions to attack people. Why is the feeling of hunger an edge case? I simply can't get that riddle to, you know, right? An edge case, is that sort of on the edge of something that I might feel hunger or you feel hunger? Why is it an edge case? I thought an edge case is, well, yeah, well, because that color of gray is lightly blue or lightly green. Okay, we can't agree on that. So every color doesn't exist. Okay, but are you saying that some people are trying to say, okay, I can't tell you whether or not I'm hungry. I can tell you, but you can never get to the feeling of hunger that I have. And therefore, nobody's hungry. Is that what you're trying to say? I mean, why do you call it an edge case? Just to, you know, from your own standards that you propose in this video.
Morality exists. Is it true? Is it blah, 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 right? Well, no, morality doesn't exist. It doesn't exist like a tree exists, or like electricity exists, or gravity, which is a...
Gravity does not exist. Gravity is an explanation. Gravity does not exist. You need to get a grip on this, right? You do not know what you're talking about. Gravity is a description of things happening. It's not a thing that exists. It's a description. You know, the earth exists, the moon exists, but gravity does not exist. It's an explanation of how things move about in sort of a, you know, a mathematical way, right? That's why you use mathematics to describe it. You don't observe it with your senses, right? You observe the things going on with your senses. That's the knowledge. And then you interpret it and say, this interpretation is what I call gravity. but that interpretation does not exist. You need to understand this.
The relationship between objects that have mass, it doesn't exist. So what? Doesn't mean that it's subjective. Come on. The scientific method doesn't exist. Like there's a statue of it somewhere and you can measure it with tape, right? The scientific method doesn't exist. Mathematics as an abstract discipline doesn't exist in the real world. Like there are 3 coconuts, but there's not the number 3 that's glued onto the number, right, to the number of coconuts. So there's tons of things. Logic doesn't exist. Science doesn't exist. Mathematics doesn't exist, right?
Gravity doesn't exist.
Even price doesn't exist, right? There's a relationship between 2 things of value that are being exchanged for mutual benefit, but you say you're going to pay $20,000 for a car. The car exists. The money, well, it's fiat money, so mostly it somewhat exists, but it exists by convention, like grammar, right? But the $20,000 as it's an abstract way of describing the relationship between your money and the car. The money exists, the car exists, the 20,000 number doesn't exist. It's just a way that you describe these relationships, right? So, I mean, the vast majority of what we deal with in the world doesn't exist, but it's objective.
It's subjective. So what? It's sort of a diminishing of that. Oh, we need to reach that, golden standard of objectivity. And I'm here to tell the little people that we need to reach this level of objectivity. All your little subjective things, they're not really that important, right? You little minions, give me your money and let me tell you where objectivity is.
What time? There's no reason why it would be divided into 24 hours and 60 minutes and 60 seconds.
I think it has to do with Babylonians. The Babylonians, they have the 60 base of the number system, and 12 was, 5 times 12 is 60. So divide 60 by 5, you get 12. 12 is a number, and 2 times 12 is 24. So you get 24. I think it has to do with the Babylonian number system. But it's still arbitrary in a sense, but there's a reason.
It's just a convention, right? Time. It moves forward in a linear fashion, but the way...
What? It moves forward? Is that objective? It moves forward? Can you show me a video of time moving forward? Please, would you mind showing us how time moves forward? Compared to what? Forward from you? From your mind? From some edgelord? Right? Where is it moving? Moving towards the moon or to the center of Earth? Where is it moving? Please explain yourself. Show us a video of that time moving, please.
We've sliced and diced. It doesn't exist in the real world, but doesn't mean that you don't have to show up at 9 o'clock when you have
So if it doesn't exist in the real world, how do you know it's moving? Moving is something that objects do. So if it's not in the real world, it can't be an object. So it can't be moving, right? What the hell are you saying? What kind of bullshit is that?
9 o'clock appointment. Time is subjective, man. So, the fact that something doesn't exist in the objective universe, if it's tied into the objective universe, like how did we know we needed to add a day every 4 years? Because the Earth goes around the sun 364 and a quarter, right? So every 4 years, you got to add a day to keep up with things, right? And every now and then, I think they change the clocks a tiny bit or whatever it is, right? So if the mental structure you have created references something in the objective universe, then although the mental construct doesn't exist in the same way that the objective universe does, it doesn't mean it's subjective because it describes the objective universe.
This is interesting. Your metaphysics is completely screwed. You are telling me now that you have an experience in your mind of something outside your mind. And then you're telling me about the difference between them. So in your mind, you also have an access to something outside your mind? Is that what you're saying? How do you know about that outside your mind? If it's not in your mind, how the hell can you experience it? And if you can experience it, how can you tell me anything about it? So are you having the whole universe inside your head? Otherwise, what you have in your head must be something else that which is outside your mind. What the hell are you talking about? Are you crazy?
Right? So, and people say, oh gosh, well, what's the difference between a tree and a shrub? And there's something halfway in between, and some people call it.
It's a matter of definition, right? It's again these categories. Somebody make a manuscript and say, when there's 17 leaves in this color measured by this instrument, I will call it a tree. And who gives a shit what we call it? It doesn't change the real world, the experienced external world. It doesn't matter what we call it, right? It's completely ridiculous to discuss what we should call it. It doesn't change anything about it, right?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't. The edge case lord stuff is just nonsense, because what they're trying to do is get you to doubt an edge case. And as they say in the law, edge cases make bad law, right? So what they do is they're trying to get you to live in the uncertainty and then extend the uncertainty to everything. Yeah, there are edge cases. Some 18-year-olds are very immature. Some 16-year-olds are very mature. But you.
So now you're getting back to that 18. Why the hell is it exactly 18? Is that because your masters has told you that your child or your children is adult when it's 18 years old? Is that why it's exactly the same as what your master's telling you? So you agree with them like you are a little bitch just obeying orders. What is it about this 18? You know what 18 years is? That's exactly, 18 times around the sun from the, from when you came out of your, you squatted out between your mother's legs, right? So when you pop out out of your mother's vagina, and then you take 18 turns around the sun, then you will be adult, right? What kind of bullshit is that? 18 times around the sun, and then your mind and body is adult. That's so fucking stupid. I can't believe it, right? Are you supporting that kind of mystic craziness? Right? What is that? I can't believe it. Presumably intelligent man like you is supporting bullshit like that.
You got to have some objective definition of the difference between a child and an adult. You just have to.
No, I don't. No, I don't have to have. I can manage on my own. Thank you very much. I can make my own judgment when I think my children are grown up. Okay? I don't need anybody to tell me when they're grown up. Thank you very much. I have a subjective philosophy about that. Okay?
As a society. And it's kind of labor intensive to do some test of objectivity, which will probably be corrupted anyway by whatever special interest groups. So what they'll do is they'll say, well, they'll define something as partly objective and partly subjective. And then they'll say, focus on the subjective part. Can you prove it objectively? And you'll say no. And then they'll say, well, then there's no such thing as objectivity. This happens over and over. I've done this enough. And it's really boring, right? And once you see this pattern, right? So they'll say.
So this, this high standard of you as such a fetish for objectivity. Well, I understand the importance of objectivity, because that's a necessary standard to have to reach any kind of ethics and a moral principle. But you need to understand what objectivity is. Once again, it's an agreement between two or more individuals about an object or some objects, right? That's why it's called objectivity, right? As long as there's only one person observing that object, it can only be only that subject that has that experience. If more than one subject has that experience and they agree on the experience, then you can say it's objective, right? There's no objective thing that you can observe by yourself. There's nothing objective by definition or intrinsically. It's an agreement. It's not an object. Even though you call it objective, objectivity is not the object. It's the agreement about the object, okay?
Does hunger exist, right? And you say, well, yeah, people feel hungry. It's like, well, how do you prove that they feel hungry? How do you prove that they're not lying? You say, well, I guess you could go with the hunger hormone, or you could go with the objective factor body.
No, you can't, because that's you need to cross the barrier of the hard problem of consciousness, and nobody has done that yet, and nobody's going to do it, is my prediction, because it stems from an invalid metaphysics, right?
You need food. It's like, no, what if it's purely subjective and you have to rely on their self-reporting? Can you prove it? It's like, well, no, then it's not in the realm of philosophy anymore, right? It's like a sun.
I will agree that it's subjective, and so what? Yeah, if it can't be proven that you're hungry, so what? Say it can't be proven, fuck you, right? But don't tell me whether or not it's philosophy to think about whether you're hungry, because it is philosophy. It's part of philosophy. Philosophy is also a subjective endeavor, right? We might agree upon the technique we use, and we talk about the same ideas of what we need to do, like metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics, and so on, and agree upon that. But it's not objective, because it's not an object. It's a kind of thinking, right?
Sunset is, when the sun appears to sink over the horizon because of the turning earth, and that's the sunset, right? I mean, it's an objective thing. Whether the sun is going down or coming up, it's kind of an objective thing, right? So that's in the realm of science or reality, philosophy, truth, right? I like sunrises. I guess I personally like sunrises, but I don't really like getting up early. So there's not a whole lot of proof of me getting up and reflectively sipping coffee while the ball of nuclear weaponry, vaunts up on the sky like a bounced beach ball. No, it's not a lot of evidence that I do it, although I do like sunrises every now and then. I'll have to do it for various reasons. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of nice watching the sun come up. It's a new day, it's a new dawn, and that's nice.
That's nice.
Some people like rain, some people like sun. Rain and sun are...
that's a subjective statement, right? I need to just point out that Mr. Molyneux is making a subjective statement. It's not philosophy. It's just his opinion that it's nice. Okay? And his book, Almost, I think it was called, he says it's a fantastic novel and it's great and it's wonderful and everything. It's just a subjective statement. It's not philosophy. It's his own damn freaking opinion, right? So don't buy it. Don't buy what he says. If you want to buy the book, fine. But don't judge the book from his pathetic subjective statement about that book. It's only his personal, ridiculous, unphilosophical, subjective opinion. We can't prove it, right?
Objective phenomenon is sunny.
Who knows? Who cares, right?
It's a raining subjective, whether you like it or not is subjective. And although there may be some evidence for it, if it's defined as purely subjective, that's just the way that it is. So watch.
Purely subjective. It can be subjective and it can be purely subjective. So now you're making sort of degrees of subjectiveness. Holy freaking crap, man.
Watch out for these echoes, man. These edge
Watch
case
out.
laws, they'll get in.
And they may also be on the Discord channel, the free domain channel. There might be edge laws there. Look out for them. And if you see one asking questions about anything about specifically UPB or anything else, essential philosophy, anything that Mr. Molyneux, the Lords of Doom hunter himself, has written or said, they need to be attacked because they are definitely edge case Lords of Doom, right? So just hunt them down and get them the frick out of the Discord server so he can, count his cryptos in peace, right?
Really loosey-goosey defines some stuff. It ends up being purely subjective. You can't prove it objectively, and then they say there's no such thing as objectivity. Very, very dangerous people. Very dangerous people.
But if they argue that way, yes, they are freaking crazy, right? So, of course, but that is not really the case when you're talking about hunger. It's not an edge case. So you're mixing your terms. You're violating your own rules for discussing edge case Lords of Doom, right? So you're just manipulating once again.
Anybody who comes between you and rational certainty is a dangerous predator.
Rational certainty. Would you mind explain what certainty is? No? Why don't you explain it so we can find these edge case lords, right? Give me the definition, please. Give me the definition of certainty. Come on, you can do it.
Who must be either reformed or avoided, I would say, with great intensity. Thanks so much for listening and for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Lots of love from you.
Reformed or avoided, yeah. Okay, that's it. That's it for today. That is my comment on this weird guy's, fear of subjectivity. He really must have something with trusting his own feelings and emotion. And I would say he probably has a problem somewhere, since he's so afraid of subjective judgment. It has to be objective, otherwise it's not philosophy. And this is a philosophy show, so subjective stuff, get away with it. And they're edgelords, and they are attacking me, and I want to count my crypto in peace. Go away. See you next time.